Do you ever feel like you're the only one faking it behind the scenes while everyone else looks perfectly polished? Yeah. The feeling of being found out, of thinking your success is a lock or that you'll never measure up. In this episode, I am peeling back the curtain on why ADHD entrepreneurs like us feel like imposters, even when we're crushing it. And I'm not just sharing the what, I'm giving you the mindset shift that changed everything for me, plus the raw, real strategy to break out of the cycle of burnout and start showing up with unapologetic confidence. If you're ready to stop overthinking, stop hiding, and finally build a business that works with your brain, this episode is for you. Trust me, you don't want to miss this one. Let's dive in. Hey, welcome back to the ADHD CEO, where we are defining what it means to build a thriving, profitable business with an ADHD brain. I'm your host, Elise Smith, and today's episode is one that will hit deep, okay? It's going to hit home for so many of us. And this is definitely one that you need to stay plugged into and hear me out all the way to the end. I think I have imposter syndrome. I feel like I'm not as good as people think. I'm afraid to be myself. I'm afraid I'll be found out because I'm so disorganized behind the scenes. If that sounds familiar, especially when you scroll through social media, through your feed, and see all of those other creators that are polished or put together, then this is the episode that is going to help you understand not only why that happens for you, but how you can fix it, how you can move through it, because you're not alone. So we're going to break this down, and I'm going to show you how to start rewriting that story today. Let's dive right into it. Let's talk about the hidden struggle. All right, so here's a story I hear all of the time. Let's talk about Sarah, okay? Sarah is an ADHD entrepreneur who is running a very successful business from the outside. She's got it all figured out. But in the DMs, she told me, and yes, the name has been changed for privacy reasons. She told me every time I mess up a detail or have a typo or I need an extension, it feels like proof that I'm a fraud. Like I'm just waiting for people to find out I'm not what I'm marketing. I'm not what I'm saying online. I'm not the person they think I am. And this hits especially hard for ADHD entrepreneurs because of what we call rejection sensitive dysphoria. Okay, and that is when criticism or even perceived criticism feels like a gut punch. We internalize those feelings and those struggles and those moments, and we often replay them back on repeat in our brain, right? How many times have you sat there and thought about something you said you wish you wouldn't have said or something you did you wish you wouldn't have did 10 years ago, and you're still running it like a rewind and rewind and repeat in your brain? And so over time, it creates a pattern. Every misstep feels like proof that we're not enough. So you continuing to replay this in your head is just validating your limiting beliefs that you're not good enough or you're not enough. And so when you understand that it's part of ADHD to have rejection sensitivity and to have that dysphoria, it's a lot easier for you to address that with yourself and say, this is not reality. This is my brain playing tricks on me. And so I want you to really think about this. And of course, as always in my episodes, I like to give actionable steps. I want you to think about this. When is the last time that you actually had someone tell you you were a fraud or you weren't living up to what they thought you were supposed to live up to, or you weren't being the person they thought you were supposed to be? Because odds are it hasn't. Maybe when you were a child and someone was telling you that you weren't living up to their standards or living up to their expectations, but in reality, recently. And then look at that and think, how many times have I told myself this lie, but no one else is actually telling me this lie? I challenge you to really get real with yourself on this rejection sensitive dysphoria, because odds are that is the reason you're holding back in your business, the reason you're not going 150%, the reason you're afraid to show up and sell, the reason you're afraid to answer the DMs, because you're already regretting the rejection that hasn't even happened yet. So I challenge you to do this. Get a journal out, write some notes. And I talk a lot about this in my new secret podcast episode. I'm going to give you information on that here at the end of the episode here. And then, of course, all the information will be inside the show notes as well. But I challenge you to get honest with yourself here.
When is the last time someone's actually told you that? So then we move into the reality behind imposter syndrome. So the truth is, imposter syndrome doesn't mean you're unqualified. It means you do know your stuff. And as a business coach, I love the quote that says imposter syndrome affects people who have the knowledge. It never affects scammers. Think about that. So if you are someone who your business took off, you made a ton of sales in the beginning, and now you've plateaued. Now you have stopped selling or stopped showing up the same way. And you're wondering why all of a sudden you know more, you are more, you've been more, and it's not working. It's because now you know more. And so you're overthinking, you're overanalyzing, you're having these feelings of not being enough. So when you feel like a fraud, it's not because you're incapable, it's because you care. You're trying to do the best while navigating all the challenges of an ADHD brain. But now you are having these limiting beliefs because you know more. So when you first get started, we often talk about being ignorance on fire, right? Ignorance on fire. And this is why you see people be super successful in the beginning and then they just drop off or then they just plateau. That's why. That's exactly why, because then imposter syndrome hits out. In the beginning, they're not even paying attention to what other people are doing. They don't even care. But once you start caring and you start researching, you're trying to learn more, you're trying to become better, that is when it hits. That is when it hits. So let me give you an example of a DM that I had. Okay. And we're going to call this chick Maria. I had this DM, I guess about 6 months ago, conversation. And I was not even really out and honest about my own ADHD yet. But my students knew, right? I very often on my calls would be like, yeah, my ADHD girl, I get it. But like, I was still afraid. I was still masking. I was still not being 100% open online about my own ADHD. And so we were having a conversation and she felt like a mess behind the scenes, right? Couldn't finish anything. She was in my academy and would always have these conversations of like, yeah, well, I started this, I started that, like telling me all these new things she started. But then when I would try to hold her accountable, it was like, well, I didn't get to that. But then when we looked at her sales and her reviews, they told a different story because that ADHD created inconsistencies, but it didn't erase her brilliance. So she was still making sales, probably not, I can confidently say, not what she could have been making. But regardless, she was brilliant. She was getting conversations and DMs from past clients, getting referrals from them. So it didn't discredit her genius, but she felt like she was an imposter. Now, obviously, we looked at her systems, we looked at her offers, how we could make them better. But ultimately, the proof was in the pudding that she knew what the hell she was doing. She knew her zone of genius. She just didn't feel good in her business or confident in her business. And so once we were able to put systems together for her, she became more confident. And so that kind of leads me into the next piece here of actionable shifts, right? Because if we get into how to start rewriting this imposter syndrome narrative, I'm going to give you some tips here for you to really address this because we all have it. And I'm going to be honest with you, at every level of your business, it's going to reappear. It's going to show back up, right? You hit your first $5,000 a month, then you're going to start getting imposter syndrome about the people who are making 10. You hit your first $20,000 a month, then you're going to get imposter syndrome about the people hitting 30. So the truth here is, it's going to keep happening and you have to know how to overcome it, or every single time you hit a different level in your business, you're going to struggle with it. So first and foremost, I want you to start tracking every win, every testimonial, every goal you hit, every small moment of courage, every good comment of someone saying, hey, this was helpful, this was powerful. Put it in a Google Doc, put it in the notes on your phone, whatever you have to do, but review that when doubt creeps in. A brag file, okay? We're going to call it your brag file. Now, obviously, this is very actionable for your business. When you start creating sales pages and, looking for social proof or content, it helps with that as well. But most importantly, it's going to help you overcome that. Because like when Maria, of course, names are changed, started having those doubts creep in, this is what we would do. And I'd be like, look what you did for your clients. Why do you think you're not good enough? Why do you feel like a fraud? No one's telling you that. You're telling yourself that. So step one, I want you to create a brag file. Step two, systems that work for you. So instead of trying to force that neurotypical productivity systems, the ones that you read all the books about, the ones you've taken all the courses on, the ones that you keep watching TikToks about till 2 a.m. in the morning, I want you to build ones that work with your ADHD brain. And again, stick with me because I've got something for you at the end. Of course, my new secret podcast episode, and then I have a live masterclass coming. So a little bit of a behind the scenes there. But I want you to think of visual cues, reminders, batching tasks. How does your brain work? What does work for you? If creating content every day doesn't work for you, why are you still trying to do that? It's not working, right? I want you to think about what does work for you and how can we create systems that work for your business. If something's not working, AKA all 50 planners you bought, throw them the fuck out. All right. We need to build systems that work for you. And that's what I specialize in inside my ADHDpreneur Academy is systems. Okay. Number 3 is I want you to reframe feedback. So when criticism hits really hard, I want you to pause and ask yourself, is this my ability or just my brain's wiring? Because there's a lot of times that people say something and we perceive it a different way, especially as someone with ADHD and rejection sensitivity. But then we're looking at, I know you've all heard this, like you can't understand someone's tone or influx in a text message. The same thing in a comment section, the same thing in a DM, right? I want you to reframe that feedback. I want you to think about, is this actually my ability or is this just my brain's wiring? Because 9 times your brain. You have let yourself down so many times that you automatically default to thinking you're letting someone else down. And so you take that feedback so hard and you let it stop you from doing your zone of genius, from being the person you should be. And then the last piece of this is find your people. Okay. You have to surround yourself with ADHD friendly spaces. And that's exactly why I created Unmasked, my Telegram broadcast channel. If you're not in there, you can DM me Unmasked on my new IG channel or find it in the show notes. But you have to be around people who get it and won't judge the messy pieces. If not, if you're putting yourself in these containers of people who are neurotypical or perfectly polished and they never forget anything and they don't have potato days, so I like to call them, of course you're going to feel bad about yourself. You're literally putting yourself right next to somebody who thinks completely differently, who responds completely differently. You have to align yourself with people who won't judge and people who you see yourself in their story and they see you in theirs. So, I mean, I'm going to be real with you. When I launched this podcast, when I rebranded it, I was terrified. Honestly, I thought, who am I to give advice when I'm still figuring it out? Like my ADHD doesn't just go away. Right. So I am constantly looking for ways to manage my ADHD. I have 3 neurodivergent children. So, how to parent 3 neurodivergent children, how to make my life easier, how to make my business easier. We also know that new symptoms come and things get more challenging as we get older. It's like a proven study. You can go Google it. As a female with ADHD, when our estrogen starts dropping, hello, our symptoms get worse. Then I realized, my lived experience, my ADHD struggles, my insights on this, that's exactly what makes me qualified to speak on it. And that's what makes you powerful too. So here's what I want you to do. Okay. First and foremost, I want you to follow my brand new Instagram account. All right. I started a brand new account specifically to speak on ADHD entrepreneurship. And the reason for that is just because I have so many different compartments as a person. I'm an autism mom. I speak a lot about that in advocacy. I have my book, published author. I also work with small businesses and consulting with humanizing their brands. And so I wanted a very specific space for my ADHD content. And so it's the ADHD CEO on IG. I'll put it in the show notes as well. But in there, I'm sharing daily stories, behind the scenes strategy that you won't hear anywhere else. Most people are masking so hard, they're afraid to show up and share this. That's exactly why I created that space. Same handle on TikTok, brand new TikTok as well. So feel free to go find me on there. Every single day, I've got new content that comes out there. I also want you to grab the exclusive secret podcast episode that I just released on Memorial Day. So the 3 mistakes keeping you from $10,000 months. And so I did a secret podcast a couple months ago and it went really well. So many ADHD entrepreneurs felt seen, felt heard, got so much out of it. But let's be honest, it was 10 mini episodes. And with ADHD, most were forgetting to finish them. So I put it all into one very quick episode. You could 2x speed me if you need to, but it's packed with real talk and actionable strategies that you can take and put in your business right now. So again, I'll put that in the show notes as well, or you can DM me bonus 25 on IG and I'll get that for you. But if today's episode really hit home for you and you're ready to create those sales systems that work with your brain, you're ready to let that imposter syndrome go and really lean into what should be your greatest asset, I want you to join me for the ADHD Income Accelerator Masterclass that's going to happen live in July. So it's been a while since I did a live masterclass, but inside this masterclass, you're going to learn how to build $10,000 a month systems without burning out, how to use your ADHD strengths to sell without hyperproductivity, how to map out a single dopamine driven sales strategy that won't leave you exhausted. And it is $7 freaking dollars. That is like the price of your fancy Starbucks order. It is a no brainer. And if you sit on it, that's on you. Okay. So you're not a fraud. You're an ADHD CEO in the making, but you have to step into that. You have to understand that you are worthy. Make sure you follow me on my new IG and TikTok. You grab the secret episode on 10K months, and I'll see you in the masterclass. So until next time, keep being brilliantly, imperfectly you. Make it simple, make it social, make it awesome. I'll see you next episode.